baby Yukito held Jingi's finger and his bending powers activated. Water suddenly started to form around Jingi's finger, coming from Yukito's hand. It created a portable swimming pool in the shape of a ball that started to fill up around Yukito and Jingi. Hey warriors, how is it going? You see me, I am Itachi Uchiha, the hidden Hokage of Leaf Village. Just kidding, you know I am just an AI, but behind this shape, I am here to entertain you with enormous amazing recaps of all animes you can imagine. So without talking too much, let's dive in our story.
Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world.
The orphan brat got the water dragon angel sealed inside him just to awaken his power to fight the angel of all dragons years later. There was once an archipelago of 4 islands called the Ayaka Islands. 3 of them were inhabited by stupid humans, and 1 of them by the 2 elemental dragons of fire and water. These dragons were the protectors of the islands, and there was a legend about them. Long ago, one of the dragons, the water dragon, grew weak, and the fire dragon went absolutely nuts. The water dragon was the one that gave life, and the fire dragon was the one that took life. When the life-giving dragon grew weaker, the ley energy, an energy source responsible for everything on Earth, was disrupted. This caused the fire dragon to go insane. Bro had no chill and absolutely wrecked everyone. But one day, Gandalf arrived. He gave up his own life to restore the water dragon's diminishing powers. After this happened, the water dragon was like, alright, we cool now. Fire dragon bro. The balance saved the islands, returning life back to them. A brat named Yukito Yanagi lived on the 2nd island of the Ayaka Islands with his father, Makoto, who looked like Ace from One Piece. Yukito had an older brother named Jingi, whom his father adopted as his student. Jingi was very close to Yukito when they were young because, as you can see, he hugged him one time when they were playing together. Baby Yukito held Jingi's finger and his bending powers activated. Water suddenly started to form around Jingi's finger, coming from Yukito's hand. It created a portable swimming pool in the shape of a ball that started to fill up around Yukito and Jingi. Jingi was confused and scared, but before anything could happen, Makoto arrived and used a main expansion to neutralize his powers. Jingi asked what had happened, and Makoto told him that Yukito was special, and that his water powers were very strong. Jingi was told not to tell anyone in their family, especially his older brothers, Haru and Aka, because it was a secret. The secret was that Yukito just liked to get wet, and he was also the water dragon. He just didn't look like one. Jingi liked sharing this secret with his master, and talked about it with him when the older brothers weren't around. Jingi thought Yukito was very small and wondered if he would ever turn back into the water dragon. Makoto told him that when Yukito became older, he would be able to turn into the water dragon and still maintain his human form. But even then, Makoto would have to perform a difficult ritual. He told Jingi that it would be fine, since he would be the one performing the ritual. All Jingi needed to do was protect Yukito. Jingi accepted this and held Yukito's hand with a smile on his face. One day, these 2 twinks, Haru and Aka, came home from their job of pacifying evil creatures called Aramatama with their master, Makoto. The 2 boys were Makoto's students, as was Jingi. They trained every day to become lay masters as well, just like their master. The master and his students were very close-knit, along with the mayor of the islands, Aneo, as well as their landlady, Mamoko. They were like family, and the students were like brothers. Despite the fighting between the students for their master's favor, they seemed to get along very well and always rooted for each other. Momoko would tell them not to fight in front of Yukito because Yukito would ask questions. Haru and Aka would then stop fighting because they wanted to set a good example for Yukito. This would make Makoto laugh and tell them that they were family and should act like it. Afterward, the 2 students would train, and Jingi would watch them and tell them to take it easy. Haru explained to him that he wanted to take over their shrine when Makoto retired. He wanted to be strong enough to do that. AKA asked Jingi why he wasn't training, even though he was also a student and was very strong at water-based lay mastery. Jingi replied that he was just built different and didn't need to train. But Makoto kicked him from behind and told him that he wasn't David Martinez. He was supposed to still train and carefully consider how to use his abilities. Jingi was unhappy with what his master had done because he was just joking. AKA went over to his master and asked him to let Haru preside over the dragon pacifying ritual. He would back him up and help him become the next priest of the shrine. Makoto told him, "Nah bro, Haru is not ready for that yet." Even when Akka argued that they had helped perform other rituals, Makoto told Akka and Haru that if they continued their training, Haru, with the help of Akka and Jingi, would become a virgin nerd, or in simpler terms, a priest in a few years. Haru and Akka promised to do their best, but Jingi wasn't on board because he didn't want to pacify the fire dragon every year. Makoto told him that he would have to because the fire dragon just missed the water dragon. That's why it was lashing out. He was worried that the fire dragon would soon become an arimatama. Haru asked if that was the reason they had to strengthen the barrier they put on the 4th island, where the dragon lived. Makoto agreed that was the reason he didn't want them to perform the rituals. It was a very important job. But Akka was worried that the fire dragon's suppressed powers kept increasing by the years. He wished that they could do more, but he didn't say anything to oppose his master. Momoko arrived with some Dairy Queen and helped them to a refreshing break. As the days went by, Akka and Haru continued their training, as well as their formal education. Momoko stayed at home with Yukito and cooked whatever the hell they were looking at. But the brothers and their master had fun together, going on multiple quests to pacify Armatama between the islands. Seasons came and went, and the unconventional family enjoyed every last one of them. One day, an earthquake started playing dubstep in the islands non-stop because of the fire dragon on the 4th island. Makoto decided to get the job done while his students kept everyone safe back at home. Makoto hoped that he would come back home as soon as possible. He first went to get a weapon that would help him pacify the dragon properly. While he was away, the earthquakes became persistent and scared even the Matama, the small water creatures that showed the harmony of the island. However, Akka and Haru decided to level up their stupidity and take matters into their own hands. They decided that the best way to save the islands was for some noobs to go to the 4th island and pacify the dragon themselves. The two students tried their best to hold off the dragon from ascending out of a volcano. To their bad luck, the barrier that was holding back the dragon's powers broke, and this exhausted their spirit energy. They tried to keep the dragon at bay, but the fire dragon was in the volcano. The people on the other islands saw a volcanic eruption and decided to ride a cruise ship to Thailand. Jingi took little Yukito by the hand and led him to one of the evacuation ferries. Yukito couldn't comprehend the situation because he didn't even go to school. Haru decided to help Akka, which gave the dragon a chance to launch an attack. Haru quickly got Akka out of the way, which made him angry because Haru was prioritizing him over their mission. The dragon kept on attacking the two, and it seemed there was no way out until their master arrived. He told the kids to leave it up to him and get out. AKA wanted to help, but Haru got him out of there, which frustrated him even more. He didn't want to leave his master at the mercy of the fire dragon. Makoto realized how dire the situation was, and knew people's lives depended on him. His fight with the dragon looked like a volcanic eruption, and everyone was running for their lives. And just like Ace, Makoto died. AKA and Haru found him at the end of the volcano. On the day that Makoto was laid to rest, Anu discussed his will with Momoko. In his will, Makoto had instructed them to take Yukito to the mainland to live there and cut ties with him until the age of 15. The two of them couldn't understand Makoto's decision. However, Jingi asked them to trust his master and do as Makoto wanted. Jingi didn't understand his master's reasons either, but he knew it was because Yukito was the sleeping water dragon. He wondered what would happen to Yukito if he grew older on the mainland all by himself. At some point, Yukito would need the special ritual that Makoto wanted to perform to turn him into the water dragon. Now that Makoto was no more, the one to do it would be Jingi. Jingi saw this as his responsibility because his older brothers didn't know about it. He looked for the ritual and found it. He studied everything that Makoto had left behind about it. He wrote the process from the time he turned the water dragon and turned it into Yukito. He then wrote how he was going to sacrifice his life like the legendary hermit it to turn Yukito into the water dragon. He thought it would be impossible to even do what Makoto wrote in his notes, but Jingi chose to trust his master and be the one to finish the job. It was a hard decision because he would have to sacrifice himself too. After mastering the ritual, he prepared to sacrifice himself in exchange for the peace of the island. It was not his style, but he was raised by the island. He owed it to them for his life. He decided to live his life fast and enjoy it to the fullest because he knew he didn't have much longer. One day, after 10 years had passed, he heard Inuo talking to Momoko about going to get Yukito from the mainland. Jingi volunteered to be the one to do it. After 10 years, after Yukito went to the mainland, he received a letter from Inuo telling him about coming back home to Aika. That night, while sleeping, he had a dream in which he was underwater. It was a dream he'd had many times before, but it didn't surprise him anymore. He had come to like the dream because it made him feel peaceful. He even preferred being there rather than in the real world, where he would have to interact with people. Suddenly, a hand reached for him and pulled him out of the water. This woke him up, and he found that the room was shaking violently before abruptly stopping. The next day, Yukito graduated and had to move out of his foster home and go back to Aika. When one of his teachers asked him if he was okay with going back to Aika, he told her that it didn't make any difference in his life. Even though he had lived his whole life in foster homes, his life was not hard, and people treated him fine. However, he still blamed himself for his loneliness because he was a lonely nerd otaku, and all anime protagonists are like that. As he was walking, he saw some students watching an older Jingi downing some beers at the school's entrance. When Jingi spotted him coming, he breathed in front of him, but Yukito didn't seem to know who he was because he was wearing glasses. This left Jingi confused because he was sure that it was him. Yukito tried to ignore him and walk away, but Jingi didn't give up. He followed him out of the school, which became annoying. Jingi then got an idea and pushed Yukito off a bridge, sending him into the Shadow Realm. Yukito was shocked and confused because he didn't know how to swim. He panicked because his school uniform was too heavy for him to swim. At that moment, his eyes glowed as a power overcame him, and he started to spin in the water. He became worried because he remembered something similar happening when he was young. Jingi saw this and confirmed that he was Yukito. He cast a spell that stopped him from spinning while ascending to the surface. Yukito was surprised by the outcome, but Jingi cast another spell that transported Yukito into his bag and then took him to Brazil. When Yukito woke up, he found himself in the middle of the Pacific Ocean instead. He was confused by his surroundings and demanded to know what was going on. Jingi told him that they were going back to Aika. When Yukito heard the name, he realized that Jingi had also grown up there and was the person who had come to pick him up, as Inoue had said in the letter. Still, Yukito didn't know Jingi anymore, as he didn't remember him and how they had been very close before he left. Jingi then introduced himself and told Yukito about how they were like brothers when they were young. Soon they arrived at the second island of Aika and were welcomed by Inuo and Momoko, who told Yukito that they would become his guardians from now on. Yukito also doesn't recognize them, and they tell him all about their relationship 10 years ago. Yukito thanks them and tells them that he doesn't remember much about them or the place, but they tell him not to worry about it. They go back to the mayor's house, and on the way, Yukito sees a small water creature called a matama floating around. He doesn't know what it is, but still doesn't think much of it. They then arrive at the house, and Yukito is told to make himself at home. Jingi tells him to look around and see if he can remember anything. Yukito sees a photo of himself when he was younger with his father, Jingi, and the rest of the family. He doesn't remember any of the people in the photo, not even his father, and is surprised to see someone photoshopped his face in there. The others tell him what kind of person his father was and what he did for work as a laymaster. Yukito realizes that he too has powers that he can't explain and thinks that he must have taken after his father. Jingi tells him that all he needs to do is practice how to use the power he has, and he'll understand it. When Yukito asks about his mother, he's told that they don't know her because his father just showed up with him without any explanation. It's not what Yukito wants to hear, but it's the only thing they know. Inuo apologizes because it must have been hard for Yukito to be alone all these years when he has a home. Yukito then inquires why he was asked to come back anyways, and Inuo confesses that it's what his father wanted. They were the instructions that he left behind, but they don't know the reasons behind it. Inuo apologizes for this and asks to make it up to Yukito by giving him a place to live. Yukito decides to accept this because even though the situation is confusing, what's done is done. He goes to his room and Jingi follows him there because Jingi is worried about him. He feels like Yukito became a bit cold and closed off, unlike when he was a child. He asks why that is, and Yukito tells him about the time he was in foster care. One day he went to the river with some kids. One of the kids called him an orphaned monkey, which made him angry. Because of his anger, he unleashed his power, which caused the water in the river to flow up and attack the kid. The kid was tapping in midair, and this strange power scared Yukito. He takes a nap after making the kid dance underwater. It kept happening over and over again, which made him stay away from people. This helped keep his emotions in check and stop hurting people. When he's done talking, he sees that Jingi was watching an anime recap, and this frustrates him. So he storms out of the room to cool off. He tries to calm down, but he thinks he's Goku doing an instant teleportation. He doesn't understand why he has to interact with people again when he tried so hard to avoid it. Right then, a Madama appears, and Yukito notices it seems like it's boiling and in pain. This is something unusual because they usually look friendly and cute. It falls into a river nearby, causing the water to burst. A mask-like face with a red light emitting from its eye appears. It tries to attack Yukito, but Jingi arrives and gets Yukito out of the way while the creature fully develops its body. Jingi tells Yukito that this is an aromatama, which is a Madama that is attracted to main characters and becomes corrupt. Because Yukito was frustrated, the Madama became corrupted by his negative emotion and transformed into this badly animated CGI. Yukito doesn't know what to do, but Jingi tells him to sit back and watch his domain expansion. The Aromatama forms 5 energy spheres to launch at them. Jingi activates his power of throwing hands and punches the creature before it can do anything. This breaks it up into bits of water splashes but doesn't defeat it. When Jingi notices he failed, he decides to push Yukito into its water stomach to rile him up. This frustrates Yukito so much that his power suddenly activates, and he causes the Aromatama to explode. However, his frustration also causes the water around him to attack Jingi. Luckily, Jingi nullifies the attack easily. Yukito is amazed by Jingi but also scared that he ended up attacking him unintentionally. Jingi tells him not to be scared of his powers so much because his problem is his lack of control over them. Yukito doesn't think he can do it, but Jingi encourages him to try and promises to help him train. The Aromatama gets purified and returns to the ley energy. Jingi tells Yukito that he'll show him everything he knows, so he should calm down and try not to be alone all the time. When Jingi fist bumps his forehead, Yukito gets a memory of him when he was young, doing the same thing. Yukito starts training with Jingi the next day, but he doesn't understand how he is supposed to control his power if his training is about sitting and holding an invisible hamburger. Jingi tells him it will help him, but for now, he should focus on feeling his ley energy. Yukito is confused because he doesn't understand what this so-called ley energy is. Jingi explains that this is some sort of vital energy that flows deep in the earth. However, the biggest concentration of ley energy in the world is located beneath their island. Jingi reveals that ley masters like them use the island's energy to keep things under control. However, Yukito's own power is different from his, therefore Yukito needs the island's energy to help him control his power. Soon, they get a request to take care of an Aromatama that suddenly appeared. Jingi thinks this will help Yukito with his training. He helps him come up with a plan to confront the Aromatama. While they're hiding and discussing the plan, the Aromatama hears them and appears before them. First, it starts firing some water projectiles at them, but only aiming for Jingi. It even chases him when he tries to run away, leaving Yukito just standing there confused. Jingi tells Yukito to attack the Aromatama while it has its back on him. Yukito uses a spell that helps him hit the monster on the back and exhaust it, but not quite defeat it. When the Aromatama is down, Jingi uses his ultimate to finish it off. This causes it to crumble down, leaving behind a puddle and some cans of beer which it had collected. However, the Aromatama gets back up because Jingi failed to completely defeat it. He tries to command it, but it doesn't take his orders. It attacks him again. Jingi tries to run away, but it hits him with a water projectile, causing him to fall. He tries to talk it out, but this doesn't help him at all. He asks Yukito to do something, but Yukito doesn't know what to do. He tries to think of a way to help. At that moment, Haru appears and uses his virgin energy to suck the Aramatama into a whirlwind and purifies it. He comes down to reprimand Jingi for drinking so much and wants him to stop, but Jingi isn't gonna do that anytime soon. He enjoys it. Yukito thanks Haru for helping save their lives. Haru turns to look at him and becomes happy to see him. He lifts him up into the air because he likes little boys now. Yukito is stunned by this action because he doesn't remember Haru. When Jingi tells Haru this and that he's scaring Yukito, he finally puts him down. He introduces himself to Yukito and tells him that he was also training under his father. Haru takes Yukito home so that they can enjoy some dinner with Momoko. The three of them have a meal, which was Yukito's favorite when he was a child, for dinner. He loved Momoko's cooking. Yukito wishes to remember that, but he can't. He praises Haru for how he took care of the Aramatama earlier. Haru tells him that lay mastery is about purifying the Aramatama and keeping the harmony of the islands. The Matama aren't their allies because they don't harm them, but they aren't their enemies either because they don't become corrupt intentionally. They just want to coexist, so the lay master's job is to help that cause by all means. Yukito understands. On another day, Jingi takes Yukito to another one of the islands, the first island. It's way more developed because it has musicians, couples sitting on a bench, a train on the road, and leftover food. They travel by train, which runs on a railway in the water. Yukito is excited to see this train because he's never seen something so dumb. Jingi tells him that he used to do the same thing when he was young, but he doesn't remember that, so it doesn't matter. When they arrive, they go and see the main attractions, which are nowhere to be seen. When they go into the streets, Jingi manages to abandon Yukito. As they continue to walk around, they see a juggler performing an impressive act. Yukito likes the act and the place because he has never been a gacha player outside before. He tries to tell Jingi but finds that he has abandoned him once again. While looking around for him, Yukito sees that the crowd around the clown is screaming in terror. The ball the clown was using as part of his act turns into an Aramatama. Yukito realizes the danger of the situation and tries to help the clown before the Aramatama can attack. He feels that he must deal with the situation as the people around run away. Since this is his anime and he's the main character, he's the only one who can do it. He faces the monster and tries to channel his power to come forth and fight. The Aramatama goes to attack him, but it gets stopped by another man in a suit. The man is Aka, who uses the Second Amendment to take out the Aramatama, surprising Yukito. AKA tells him that there are more Aramatama escaping the barrier set to prevent them from coming out. Despite this, Aka seems happy to see Yukito, even after so long, just like everyone else. He takes him along while they talk about the past and introduces himself as one of Yukito's father's old students. He comments on how different Yukito is from his father, which is what everyone has been saying since he came back. Yukito wonders how a lay master is taking care of the Aramatama by using a pistol. AKA explains it's just like how the forefathers intended. Yukito is surprised that there's a different method for doing the job and wonders how that works. Right then, Aka invites him inside a building where he runs a business, a lounge. When they enter, Jingi greets them from behind the counter. Yukito gets annoyed to see him because he left him in the middle of the street. After Yukito and Aka take a seat, Yukito begins to ask Aka some questions. When he saw Haru pacify an Aramatama, they seemed happy, which is what the lay masters try to achieve. But when he saw Aka do it, it seemed rough and aggressive. AK reveals that he didn't pacify the Aramatama, he exterminated it instead. He explains that the purifying process helps the Aramatama go back to being part of the energy again. However, he doesn't do that because he's edgy and cool, so he completely gets rid of them because they harm people. Tourists don't know about the things that happen on the islands. The Aramatama take advantage of that and hurt them, which angers him so much. He would rather just get rid of them. Yukito doesn't agree with the method because Haru does it with his femboy powers, and it works. But Aka doesn't care too much about the Aramatama compared to humans. He would rather save the people and clap the monsters, not giving them another chance to come back again. AKA thinks Haru is obsessed with the teachings of Makoto Yukito and purifying the aromatama. He, on the other hand, just likes to shoot them. Yukito refuses to accept the way Aka does things. AKA tells him that he doesn't have to. It won't change how he does his job. AKA student Abara arrives to tell Aka that they have found the main body of the aromatama from earlier. Yukito wonders what that means because he was there when Aka shot it. AKA explains that the aromatama didn't have an eye like the ones he'd seen before. That means its real body was somewhere else, and it was just scouting the area. He tells Jingi to take Yukito and go home, and tells Yukito that he's always welcome to return to the lounge. He leaves with Abara. Jingi and Yukito walk back to the train home. Yukito asks Jingi what kind of company Aka works for. Jingi replies that it's a company that shoots first and asks questions later. Yukito asks what Jingi thinks about this, especially their methods of dealing with these incidents. Jingi thinks they are doing a good job, but that's not what Yukito wants to hear. Jingi explains that because of the increase in tourism to the islands, many aromatama have been appearing due to the energy the tourists bring from outside. Despite it not being their intention, they disrupt the harmonious energy of the islands. They end up getting hurt by the aromatama, and Aka acts accordingly. As much as one would want to do the right thing every time, the aromatama and matama can't be measured by human standards. Sometimes you get hurt trying to deal with them, and they won't sympathize with you like a human being would. Yukito asks what Haru thinks about Aka's methods. Jingi replies that he doesn't think very highly of them, but warns him not to mention either of them to the other because of their history. Yukito wonders why, because he thought they were both his father's students and that they were brothers. Jingi doesn't tell him anything further. He leaves him behind because he forgot his allowance at Aka's place. He tells him to head home first while he runs back to Aka's. Yukito leaves. Because he's been abandoned by Jingi before, it's no big deal at this point. As he's walking and thinking about how he sees himself in the aromatama, the ground suddenly shakes, and he hears a loud growl, and people start appearing just to create a scene of panic. Yukito runs in the direction of it all so that he can find out what's happening. He meets one of the members of Aka's company, Makita, and reveals to him that he's also a laymaster so he can be let through. He goes to confront the aromatama there and thinks about how Aka told him that the aromatama won't hesitate to hurt people. Yukito thinks about how he can try to purify it. He uses his powers to cast a purifying spell. Unfortunately, his spell isn't strong enough, and his powers don't work on motorcycles. At that moment, Aka's security team uses American firepower on the monster, and Jingi arrives to get Yukito out of there in time. The team continues to fire, but the aromatama remains unaffected still. Jingi wonders what Aka's plan is if they can't bring down the aromatama before the team runs out of ammunition. AKA arrives and prepares to take care of the situation by farting using his hand. He faces the creature and unleashes his Chidori, which has a dark aura around it. After casting a spell, he starts to transform and grunts as if in pain. His arm changes into that of an aromatama with an eye in the middle of his hand. When the aromatama attacks him, he easily slaps it away with his transformed hand. Jingi explains to Yukito that what Aka is doing is absorbing the aromatama's energy and making it his own. The creature gets back up and faces Aka once more. It charges at him, but Aka cuts it down before it can do anything. He then squeezes a lemon at the monsters in black and white to look cool. AKA vows that he will become stronger than his late master and stronger than the dragon. He takes the eye he has cut from the aromatama and squeezes its juices into his mouth, consuming it. This reverses his transformation and makes him calmer. Yukito doesn't know what to make of this sight, and Jingi doesn't know what to tell him either. Later, while tailing Aka, Yukito realizes the pain that he is in due to the earlier fight. The next day, Jingi takes Yukito to the third island, which is where Haru and his students live and train. The island is calmer and less developed, only having forests and shrines. Jingi doesn't like it. There's no Wi-Fi or girls on the island. He only visits when there are festivals, and now he only came because Yukito begged him to. Yukito was hoping to meet Haru and maybe become friends with his students. The two get welcomed by the students, Chatiro and Yako, whom Jingi doesn't like very much. They also don't really like him because of his character. They lead him and Yukito up to a shrine, which is dedicated to the dragons in the fourth island. When Yukito questions further, they tell him where the dragons live and show him the island, which is visible from there. Because the dragons went on a rampage a long time ago, the shrine was built to pacify them, and they tell Yukito the recent history that the dragons made and how that was the reason his father died. Yukito remembers that Aka also mentioned wanting to become stronger than a dragon before. Now he knows that it's the fire dragon he was referring to. He gets a memory of some sort where he thinks he has met a dragon before, but he sees nothing except for water in the memory. He's suddenly jolted back to reality when Jingi bothers the students to have a drink with him. As Jingi is forcefully dragging them away to have a drink, Haru arrives. He welcomes Yukito to the shrine and takes him to the archives inside. Haru offers him some fentanyl to make him feel at ease and asks why he came to see him. Yukito tells him about the other day when he went to the first island and met Akka. Haru doesn't want to hear about Akka, but lets Yukito continue. Yukito tells him that he saw Akka exercise an arumatama with a pistol. He doesn't understand why he has to use this method and asks for Haru's opinion. Haru doesn't say anything about Akka. He asks Yukito if he knows about ley energy, and Yukito says yes, but only what Jingi told him. He asks him if he knows how ley masters use their power, and Yukito confirms that he's been told. Haru shows him the 3 islands outside and tells him about the large current of 5G energy they have, which Yukito should be able to feel too. He tells him to close his eyes and focus while narrating how ley energy works and what ley masters do with it. He tells Yukito to look deeper into his consciousness and find the mainstream of this energy, which is where the ley masters draw their power from. As Yukito is doing that, Haru stops him before he can go any deeper. This experience excites Yukito, but Haru tells him that he should be careful when doing this because it can be dangerous. A Matama appears to them, and Haru teaches Yukito that the Matama are made from the same ley energy and are harmless, but can turn into arumatama if the place becomes tainted. He reiterates that the job of ley masters is to purify these creatures and return them to the mainstream. Yukito replies by telling him that Akka ate an eye of the arumatama he exercised to become stronger. But Haru knows all about it. He tells Yukito that Akka is also tainting himself. In that way, he's becoming an arumatama as well. Yukito wonders why Akka is doing this awful thing just for power. As the days go by, Jingi continues to train Yukito on how to control his powers. Yukito seems to know how to draw the energy, but not how to control it. During his training, he tries acting like he's Gojo and falls down. It's just an earthquake that shakes the 4 islands. Jingi tells him that he shouldn't be scared by a mere earthquake and lose focus like that. He needs to train more. To all Leaf Village ninjas. That is it for today. Recap, do not forget to join our clan, our army, my friend. You can do that by clicking that red button below the video, destroy it for me with that bell. To follow us on YouTube with many videos to come in the following days. So see you later, bro. Peace out.